Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something really intriguing. We're going to connect the dots between, 20th century German biochemistry and, believe it or not, ancient Himalayan wisdom.
It sounds like a stretch, doesn't it? But it's fascinating. We're looking at how Otto Warburg, the Nobel laureate in Berlin, studying cells under a microscope.
Right.
And these ancient masters, thousands of miles and years away, focusing on like an invisible life force, how they both essentially pointed to the same thing for health.
Okay, so let's start with Warburg. Many will know his name, especially regarding cancer metabolism.
Yeah.
His big finding was that cancer cells just devour glucose, right? Something like, 70 times more than normal cells?
Exactly, 70 times. It's a huge difference. And he figured this whole process, this excessive sugar burning without much oxygen, anaerobic glycolysis, fermentation, basically he linked it directly to mitochondria that weren't working right. Damaged, maybe.
So healthy cells, they use oxygen in the mitochondria to burn fuel really efficiently. Aerobic respiration, that makes tons of energy, ATP.
Right, that's the main engine. But Warburg saw that if those mitochondria get damaged, or maybe just don't get enough oxygen, the cell flips a switch. It goes back to this really primitive, inefficient way of making energy. Survival mode, basically.
Anaerobic.
So the sugar wasn't just the issue itself, it was a symptom. A sign that the main power system, the oxygen-dependent one, had failed. And he put that failure down to a lack of oxygen.
Yeah, and that core idea holds up. Modern science absolutely confirms it. Cells need a steady, robust oxygen supply for their mitochondria to stay healthy and efficient. It's fundamental. Thriving versus just surviving.
Okay, so mitochondria, oxygen, cellular breakdown, how does that connect to ancient concepts like vital energy? That sounds way more mystical.
Well, that's the bridge we need to build. You look back at ancient traditions, India, China, Vietnam, they all had names for this life force. Prana, Qi, Xin, Qi. They got it from air, water, sunlight. And the core belief is always the same. This energy has to flow smoothly. If it gets blocked, you get sick.
But we need to kind of demystify that a bit. This invisible flow, it wasn't necessarily magic. It was something they observed physically. Life depended on it. And then, fast forward to the 18th century.
When science started catching up with the language.
Exactly. You had Joseph Priestley, 1774, discovering this gas he called dephlogisticated air. Catchy name.
Not quite.
Then Antoine Lavoisier comes along and calls it oxygen, O2.
Right.
And Lavoisier really nailed the mechanism, the thing that makes the ancient idea scientifically solid. We breathe in oxygen, blood carries it hemoglobin, specifically to every cell. The cells use that oxygen in the mitochondria to burn food, make energy. So the ancient reality, no breath, no life, no prana flow science just translates it. No oxygen, no cellular energy, no life. Simple as that, really.
Okay, hang on. Can we really boil it down like that? I mean, prana and qi are often talked about in terms of consciousness or spirit, not just oxygen molecules. Are we saying thousands of years of philosophy was just about O2?
That's a really important point. And look, the sources we're drawing on suggest that while the spiritual dimensions are absolutely profound, the physical aspect they were optimizing, especially with breath work, was fundamentally physiological. They felt the effects: better mood, sharper mind, more strength. And we know now all of that depends on cellular energy. So by boosting the key physical ingredient, oxygen, you improve all those downstream things. They saw the powerful results of healthy cells and called the essential input vital energy.
Okay, that makes sense. It grounds it. So the convergence point is oxygen. Vital energy, physically speaking, is oxygen. Now, why is maximizing this so critical? Let's talk about the brain.
Yes, the brain tax. This is pretty wild. Your brain is tiny, relatively speaking, maybe 2% of your body weight.
About 3 pounds, yeah.
Yet it hogs 20%, 1/5
Yeah,
of all the oxygen you breathe in.
20%.
Yeah.
That's hugely disproportionate. Why does it need so much?
Well, it never stops working, does it? Billions of neurons constantly firing, sending signals, maintaining electrical gradients, thinking, remembering, processing everything. It's just incredibly energy intensive. Even a small dip in oxygen delivery means a power shortage upstairs.
And if the supply gets cut completely, the results are fast and devastating. We're talking minutes.
Yeah, the timelines are genuinely frightening. Just 3 minutes without oxygen, neurons actually start to die off. After 5 minutes, you're risking severe, maybe permanent damage. It just shows how absolutely critical oxygen is second by second.
But those are the extreme cases, like drowning or suffocation. What our sources really emphasize is the much more common issue: chronic low-level oxygen shortage, the kind many of us might be experiencing right now.
Exactly that. Think about it sitting hunched over a desk, feeling stressed, rushing around. Your breathing automatically gets shallow, tight in the chest. This sort of habitual underbreathing means your brain cells, your mitochondria everywhere, are constantly running a bit low on fuel.
And that shows up how?
Well, think about that afternoon energy crash. Or struggling to focus, finding it hard to recall names or facts, feeling generally fatigued, maybe irritable for no clear reason. That's often your brain, especially the prefrontal cortex, which handles complex thought and emotional control, just not getting quite enough oxygen.
And if you, listening right now, just check how you're breathing. Chances are it's mostly your chest moving, not your belly.
Yeah.
That's the classic sign of like economy mode breathing.
That's it, that shallow chest breathing. You're only using maybe 30–40% of your actual lung capacity. Most of the oxygen exchange happens lower down in the lungs, but the air isn't really getting there efficiently. So those cellular power plants, the mitochondria, they're just left wanting.
Okay, so this wasn't missed by the ancients. The Himalayan masters, they saw this link. Shallow breath equals weakness. Deep breath equals strength. But they figured out it wasn't just any deep breath. It had to be a specific kind.
Right. They spent centuries refining this. They talked about breathing into the snow mountain center.
Which sounds mystical again.
It does, but physiologically, it's specific. They meant breathing deep down into the torso, focusing on the area about 3 fingers below the navel. They believe that spot was the key to really grabbing hold of that prana, that vital energy.
And modern anatomy tells us that area is basically where the diaphragm does its main work. So let's break down the mechanics. How does this snow mountain breathing actually work better?
Okay, so the diaphragm, it's this big dome-shaped muscle sitting right under your lungs. When you breathe properly using your diaphragm, it contracts forcefully and pulls downwards, pushing into your belly area.
Right, that's why your belly expands.
Exactly. And that downward pull creates this big vacuum inside your chest cavity. It's like a suction pump pulling air right down into the lowest, largest parts of your lungs. And that's crucial because that's where you have the richest blood supply waiting to pick up the oxygen.
So you're getting air to the most effective part of the lungs for gas exchange. More surface area, more capillary.
Precisely. Instead of that 30–40% capacity with shallow breathing, diaphragmatic breathing lets you use maybe 80, even 90% of your lung capacity.
Which means
What?
double the oxygen per breath, more.
Potentially 2 to 3 times more oxygen delivered with each full diaphragmatic breath compared to a shallow chest breath. That's huge. And it directly addresses Warburg's core concern, getting enough oxygen to the mitochondria so they can work efficiently.
And this isn't just theory or ancient belief anymore. Modern science is actually testing and confirming this ancient method. We have studies now.
Absolutely. Let's link it back again to those mitochondria. They need glucose, sure, but oxygen is often the limiting factor for making ATP efficiently. Not enough O2, and boom, the cell switches to that inefficient fermentation Warburg warned about. Deep breathing directly counters that.
So let's look at some proof. There was a study, Cleveland Clinic, 2002. They had people practice diaphragmatic breathing just 10 minutes a day for 8 weeks. What happened?
The results were really significant. They saw measurable drops in blood pressure, heart rate slowed down and became more stable. Basically, their whole nervous system shifted away from fight-or-flight stress mode towards rest and digest calm. And critically, they actually measured higher levels of oxygen in the blood. People also reported feeling way less stressed.
Better oxygen, less stress. What about brain power? Any evidence there?
Yep. A more recent study, 2022 in Thailand, they looked at deep breathing combined with meditation and found it increased levels of something called BDNF.
BDNF. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That sounds important.
It really is. Think of it like fertilizer for your brain, maybe more like the construction crew. It helps grow new connections between neurons, protects existing ones from stress damage, and it's vital for locking in memories and learning new things. So boosting oxygen with deep breathing seems to actively help the brain rebuild and maintain itself.
Okay, that's impressive. But the ultimate connection to Warburg is cellular health, the mitochondria themselves.
Yeah.
Is there direct proof breathing helps them?
Yes, and this is maybe the most exciting part, linking directly back. A 2021 study from India looked specifically at pranayama yogic deep breathing techniques. They found 2 key things. 1, consistent deep breathing made the existing mitochondria work better, produce energy more efficiently. But even more profound, it actually stimulated mitochondrial biogenesis.
Biogenesis, meaning making new ones.
Exactly. You're not just tuning up the existing power plants, your body starts building more power plants in the cells simply because you changed how you breathe. This directly tackles that cellular energy deficit Warburg was so concerned about.
Wow. So it all fits together. That Snow Mountain Center the monks talked about, it's not some magical energy vortex.
Nope. It's anatomy. It's the zone where the diaphragm's action is most powerful, and that strong downward movement does more than just pull air into the lungs.
How so? What else is happening down there?
Well, when that big diaphragm muscle pushes down and then relaxes up, it acts almost like a secondary pump for fluids in your abdomen. It gently massages the major blood vessels running through there, the aorta carrying oxygenated blood down, the vena cava bringing deoxygenated blood back up.
So it helps circulation.
It definitely aids venous return, pushing blood back towards the heart. And it also significantly stimulates the lymphatic system, which is crucial for clearing waste products out of tissues. Plus, the vagus nerve, a huge player in the rest and digest system, runs right through that area and gets gently stimulated by deep belly breaths. That likely explains a lot of the stress reduction effects seen in the Cleveland Clinic study.
So the monks felt calmer and stronger when breathing there because it was physically improving circulation, detoxification, and calming the nervous system. They didn't need an MRI to know it worked.
They just needed observation and practice. So let's just state the connections clearly for everyone listening. Vital energy, in its physical sense, its oxygen and its efficient use. The Snow Mountain Center, that's your diaphragm region. Deep diaphragmatic breathing, that's the technique to get maximal oxygen to your cells. And healthy, abundant mitochondria, that's the result of nourishing that vital energy.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what are the big takeaways for you, the listener? Lesson 1, I guess, is that oxygen isn't just automatic. How you breathe directly impacts how well your 37 trillion cells are fed. Breathing is an active choice, a way to invest in your cells.
Lesson 2, your body knows how to heal and function well. Often, it just needs the basics. Give it enough oxygen through good breathing, combine that with decent nutrition and rest, and you give your mitochondria the chance to do their job, to repair and thrive.
And lesson 3, ancient wisdom and modern science aren't opposed here. They complement each other perfectly. Warburg and modern science help us understand the cellular problem, the need for oxygen. The Himalayan masters gave us the practical method, diaphragmatic breathing, to solve it. Use both, the understanding and the method.
Right. And we've talked a lot about the immediate stuff, lower stress, better focus, more energy via ATP, even building new mitochondria. But based on what we know, especially about reducing cellular stress and improving energy, it makes you wonder, what other long-term benefits might science eventually confirm? Things related to maybe chronic inflammation or even how cells age. That mitochondrial biogenesis finding is pretty suggestive.
That is a really interesting thought for down the road. But for right now, the challenge is simple. Try it. Just take 5 minutes today, sit quietly, put a hand on your lower belly, below the navel, breathe in slowly through your nose, let your belly expand and push your hand out. Breathe out slowly, let your belly fall back in. That's it. Your cells will absolutely thank you for it.